Alrighty, American Miscellany, published in 1865. We are up to essay number 3, which is mutual dependence. So here we are, page 14, mutual dependence. The mutual relationship and dependence of those who constitute the body politic, and who, when regarded in this point of view, may be resolved into the two general classes of governors and governed, is easily demonstrable by such a plain and simple process of reasoning as that which follows. The body of man, from its liability to be affected by hunger and cold, stands in need of food and raiment. With these, the Indian, or the savage, who is content to eat the flesh and wear the skins of the animals he shoots or spears in the thicket or forest, can supply himself. But the inhabitants of civilized countries like our own commonly obtain their food and clothing by purchase. There is no purchasing either the necessities or the comforts of life without money, and unless this be possessed, as in the case of those who are usually denominated rich by right of inheritance, it must be acquired, as in the case of the poor, by individual or relative exertion. Both rich and poor, however, need protection, more than themselves can furnish, from the attacks of ruthless violence. The rich, that they may keep possession of what they have inherited or honestly accumulated, and the poor, that their persons may be unmolested while they are engaged in earning a subsistence for themselves and their families. This protection of property and person from the robber or the plunderer and the mischievously disposed is afforded to rich and poor alike by the laws of their country, which for this purpose impose restraints and threaten penalties. But the laws of a country, in order to become efficient as the means of yielding protection, must be duly administered and enforced. The administration of law devolves upon the executive government, and in return for the protection afforded both to rich and poor by a due administration of the laws, such a government is justly entitled to support from those under its superintendence. As the circumstances of the case thus establish a mutual relationship between the governed and their governors, so likewise do they render them dependent upon each other. And as the governed cannot say to their governors, "We have no need of your protection," so neither can the rulers say to those under their jurisdiction, "We have no need of your attachment and support." And since a similar relationship exists among the members of the social body, there is also a similar state of dependence observable. The mechanic and the laborer are dependent upon their employers for means of earning a livelihood, and their employers are dependent upon the mechanic and the laborer for the manufacture of their goods and the cultivation of their lands. The manufacturer is dependent on the merchant for the vending of his wares, and the merchant is dependent on the manufacturer for the proper quantity of merchandise. The agriculturalist is dependent upon the public at large for the consumption of his grain, and the consuming public are dependent upon the agriculturist for a plentiful supply of produce. The poor are dependent upon the rich for the distribution of their wealth, that they may have wherewith to purchase food and clothing, and the rich are dependent upon the poor for the comforts and conveniences they derive from the skills of artisans and servants. Tradesmen and workpeople, and indeed all ranks of society, the higher as well as the lower, are dependent upon those belonging to the learned and scientific professions for the valuable and beneficial exercise of the varied talents, and the members of these professions are dependent upon those who employ them for the emolument by which they are enabled to support themselves and maintain their respectability. Nor is this social dependence merely reciprocal. It extends through the whole community, so that those of one class cannot say to any of the other classes around them, "We have no need of you." The correctness of this statement may be shown by the familiar illustration with the materials and making a pair of shoes will furnish. Supposing the leather to be a home production, not imported from abroad, it is stripped in the form of a skin from the carcass of an animal, bred by a farmer or grazier, and slaughtered by a butcher, and the skin is prepared by the tanner and dressed by the currier, previous to its being cut, shaped, and put together by the shoemaker and his assistants. In putting together the different parts of the shoe, waxed thread is used, and the wax being a composition of substances usually imported. and the thread spun by a twine spinner of hemp, which he obtains from the flax dresser, who either imports the article or purchases it of the grower. And before a single nail can be driven into the heel of the shoe, a miner must be at work in getting iron ore, the smelter in separating the metal from the dross with his furnace, the forger in beating out the pig iron into bars or rods, and the nailsmith in reducing the iron rods to a size and length required. But the nailsmith, the forger, the smelter, and the miner, the twine spinner and the flax dresser, the shoemaker, the currier, and the tanner, all use a variety of tools in their respective operations, which tools are made by other artificers. And the commodities imported from abroad are brought across the sea in ships, which must be constructed, fitted, cut, and navigated by ship carpenters, riggers, storekeepers, and sailors. Consequently, those who wear pegged shoes while working, and country people generally prefer, are dependent, directly or indirectly, upon the shoemaker with his long list of cooperators. And these, again, are all dependent on the wearers of the shoes for the share they contribute towards providing them with employment. Nor can either party say to the other, "We have no need of you." It is fully evident, therefore, that man is not an independent but a dependent being. His life, his comforts, his enjoyments are all derived. And in himself, considered as a solitary individual, he possesses no resources out of which his wants can be supplied. On God, as the Father of mercies, he depends for the bestowment of providential favors, and on his fellow creatures as members of society for the means of their attainment. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights. Chapter 1, verse 17, JAS. I'm not familiar with that Bible chapter, JAS, Bible book. Yet the blessings he bestows upon his creatures are conveyed through the medium of their fellow man, that by perceiving their fraternal relationship, they may act towards each other as members of the same vast family, and by rendering each other mutual assistance, may confirm and strengthen the natural bonds of social life. And we did have a little star up here leading us to our footnote. Let's go ahead and read the footnote for mutual dependence. It says, it may not be improper to observe here that this extensive dependence is productive of great advantages, since it enables individuals to purchase at cheap rate what otherwise it would be impossible for many of them to procure. If one person has to provide and prepare all the requisites for a pair of shoes, as well as to put them together, the price demanded as a fair remuneration for time occupied and labor bestowed must of necessity be incalculably great. In a book entitled The Results of Machinery, it is remarked, there are thousands of families on the face of the earth that would be glad to exchange all that they have for a tin kettle or an iron pot, which can be bought almost anywhere for 20 or 30 cents. And could the poor man in this country but once see how even the rich man in some other places must toil day after day before he can scrape or grind a stone so as to be able to boil a little water in it, or to make it serve for a lamp, he would account himself a poor man no more. A gypsy carries about with him more of the conveniences of life than are enjoyed by the chiefs or rulers in countries which naturally have much finer climates than many parts of our own. Super helpful.